Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bambike Vichisa, and I am a fashion designer by profession and by passion. And when I look back in my memory, the furthest that I can go back as to when I wanted to start designing was when I was around 6 to 7 years old. And I was this little kid, and we would play make-believe weddings. And I would take the curtains from my mom's room, the lace curtains that she would put up very nicely, take them down and make them into clothes to dress up my cousin sisters who would be my brides. Then I would go to the garden and take little plum and cherry blossoms, as well as peach blossoms, and make them into wreaths and put them on my cousin's head. And then I would be the one performing the wedding ceremony. I would be the pastor. Today I'm not a pastor, but I'm a fashion designer. And there was nothing else that I wanted to do but this. Careers like medicine or engineering or even being an officer did not interest me. This was all I wanted to do. And today I'm very happy that I make clothes for a living. On one hand, I design clothes. I call them a unique, one-of-a-kind wedding dresses, almost like a fingerprint, and clothes, wedding dresses that I hope would become family heirlooms that would be passed down to generations. On the other side, I also design clothes that are that are inspired from my roots as a Naga, using the textiles and the motifs and making them into clothes that can be worn in a contemporary society. My journey and my foray into designing with Naga textiles actually started when I was very far away from home, when I left home and went all the way to RMIT in Melbourne, Australia to study fashion and design. And it is true when people say, the further you go away from home, the greater the longing for your roots. And that was what happened to me. So after I came back home, I was designing wedding dresses. But every time I got the opportunity to design clothes, to showcase my clothes to the outside world, I always wanted to work with the textiles and the rich heritage that I have inherited as a Naga, because I really believe that that is something original and different that we can show to the world. And as I became a mother, my son is now 17 years old, there has been an increasing burden inside of my heart to do my part as a designer in making this place a safer, better place for my son and his generations. And we know that fashion is one of the biggest polluters in the industry. And therefore for me, I was like, in my own humble way, I decided I want to do something. Even though I am a small designer, I want to do my small, humble way. I want to contribute to positive change. There are times, honestly, when I feel like I have a split personality. Because here I am, on one hand, I design clothes that are bridal dresses, the white Christian bridal dresses that are very Western, that are often inspired by my love for European culture and civilizations. I go through the history books and I love those dresses. And I'm using fabric like French laces. It's like completely different. While on the other hand, I'm working with clothes that are inspired by my heritage, a heritage that has come from headhunting, folklores, with very strong geometrical motifs and very strong colors. But as a designer, I think I am okay with that. I have learned to accept that I am this and that as well. So when I started working with Naga Designs, I realized the more I started working with Naga textiles, I realized that the traditional craft, the traditional fabrics, the fibers, and the colors that we used were totally sustainable. And I said, this is what I can use to make clothes that can be worn today. Of course, there have been challenges. One challenge for me was sourcing. When I first started, there were very few weavers, and I found it very difficult to find woven cloth that could be made into clothing. And I remember one point of time, I even cut a table runner. I don't know if some of you have seen Naga table runners. They're a little thick, but because it was made of cotton and with eco-friendly dyes, I wanted to use that. So I cut this table runner and made it into a piece of clothing. It's improved now. My sourcing has improved. My supply has improved. And the other challenge is also the fact that our traditional textile, because it's woven on the loin loom, it's not durable and it's difficult to make clothes for everyday wear. So I've had to learn to innovate and know how and where to place these motifs. The other thing also that I experienced as a designer working with my Naga textiles is that I have to be careful and I have to do my research when I work with them. Because in Naga traditional wear, the lines of distinction is very clear between the clothing, the shawls, and even the jewelry to be worn by men and women. And I, as a Naga, I want to respect that. And I'm also careful to not just cut our traditional textiles. I don't really have a heart to do that. So I usually work with textiles that have been developed, inspired from the traditional motifs of the past. Yes, I have to tell you about this as well. When I first started working with Naga textiles, I took it upon myself as, like the savior. Because I had this burden to save the art of weaving, and everybody was referring it to the lost art. And I took it upon myself. I said, oh gosh, I must work as a designer to save our textiles. And one day, actually, I had this epiphany. I just realized, no, I'm not the custodian of Naga textiles. And I realized there's so many people doing a great job. And all I have to do was to find them and collaborate with them. But when that realization happened, I could now hold my culture and what I have inherited as a Naga with an open mind and open hands. And that freed me up as I held my culture and what I had inherited with open hands and an open mind. It freed me up to embrace other cultures. It freed me up to embrace other textiles, other motifs, other eco-friendly practices, and imbibe them into the works that I create. And I believe that that's the challenge for many of us as artists today. How to find a balance, and whether we should find a balance between the different entities that are around us and take them as influence in the craft that we produce, in the art that we produce. And to be in a global world, to be in a global culture where there is also a great sense of, I feel that there's a great sense of loss of identity. Today we find that there are some in society who try to almost aggressively push forward what they fear they are losing. And sadly, when that happens, it creates more and more isms. Each culture or each civilization trying to outdo or one-up the other. I believe that as artists, our role is to find a balance. And how do we do that? I believe that first of all, it is to be secure in who we are. It is to find our identity and find who we are and who we come from. And when I talk about finding who we are, it also means looking within ourselves, within our culture, within our society, with honest eyes, and which means not just looking at the good, but also at the bad, because no society is perfect. And to leave the bad behind, taking what is good and sharing it with the world. And I believe that when we do that, as artists, when we work with other cultures, when we open ourselves to the different cultures and the traditions that are so rich, and we work with them, I believe that we can create something really beautiful in the art that we create. And today I'm not saying that I have become a master of that. I'm still learning. I'm still evolving as a designer. I'm still evolving as a human being. But my hope is that each one of us would learn to do that. And in that process, be people who would sow hope, be people who would sow loveliness, be people who would sow beauty, be people who would sow kindness, be people who would build bridges in a society and a world that is so in need right now. Thank you.